Asterisk, I never imagined a rusted-out piece of twisted metal could spark a federal investigation. A neighborhood scandal, and the downfall of our overly ambitious HOA president. But then again, this isn't your average suburban story. Asterisk, let me take you back a few months. Asterisk, my name is Lucas Palmer. I'm a retired Air Force mechanic living in the quiet, supposedly peaceful neighborhood of Shady Pines, tucked just outside of Colorado Springs. After serving 22 years working on everything from F-16s to drones, I retired early and bought a modest home with a decent-sized backyard big enough to tinker on my projects. Asterisk. One of those projects was a mangled hulk of an aircraft fuselage that had been sitting in a hangar for over a decade. The Plana 1976 Piper Cherokee was involved in a small crash in rural Montana. The pilot survived, but the wreck was never fully investigated. A friend of mine from the NTSB reached out earlier this year, asking if I'd help piece together the remnants as part of a renewed investigation into a string of similar mechanical failures across that aircraft model. Asterisk, so, had it transported by flatbed to my home chassis, crumpled wing, faded markings and all, covered it with a tarp, set up a shed, kept things tidy, didn't cause noise, and certainly didn't expect any trouble. Enter Karen Davenport. Karen is the self-appointed queen of the Shady Pines Homeowners Association. Blonde bob haircut, clipboard always in hand, and a voice like a car alarm. She lives 2 houses down and has made it her life's mission to enforce every outdated HOA bylaw as if the fate of the free world depended on it. Asterisk. I noticed the plane a day after it arrived. Asterisk. I was working on one of the stabilizers when I heard the familiar click of her heels on my driveway. I looked up, grease on my hands, and saw her glaring at the fuselage like it had personally insulted her landscaping. Asterisk, what is that monstrosity, Mr. Palmer? Asterisk, it's part of an active investigation, I explained calmly. The NTSB asked me to help reconstruct the crash for analysis. It's temporary. Asterisk, temporary or not, she said sharply, this neighborhood has rules. No unsightly structures, no operational vehicles, and definitely no aircraft wreckage sitting in plain view. Asterisk, it's covered. It's on private property, and it's protected under federal jurisdiction, I said. You can call them if you'd like. Apparently she did. But she didn't call the NTSB. She called a local towing company and claimed the wreck was an abandoned vehicle. I came home from running errands the next day to find tire tracks in the grass. A broken section of fencing and the fuselage gone. Gone. I went ballistic. Asterisk, I called the police. I called the NTSB. I even drove around looking for the flatbed company she might have used. It took me 2 hours, but I found the wreck in a lot behind Barney's Auto in tow. The poor thing was dangling from a forklift like scrap metal. The tailpieces had snapped off during the tow. Asterisk, the shop manager handed me a receipt. It was labeled unauthorized junk aircraft removal per HOA. Asterisk, I didn't scream. I didn't throw fists. I took pictures, paid the storage fee under protest, and got that thing back on my property by sunset. Asterisk, that night the real trouble began. Asterisk, the next morning, 2 black SUVs rolled into Shady Pines. A couple of suits stepped out with NTSB and DOJ badges. I'd expected a follow-up visit soon, but they were furious. The chain of custody had been broken, and that fuselage was now considered compromised evidence. Asterisk, they took statements. Lots of them. I gave them Karen's name. They knocked on her door. The look on her face as she tried to explain how she had no idea it was federal property was pure comedy gold. But the feds weren't laughing. Not only had she interfered with an active investigation, but she had also authorized the removal of property without legal authority. She tried to blame me, of course. Asterisk, I thought it was junk. It was just rotting in his backyard. It was a hazard. Turns out ignorance of federal jurisdiction is not a solid legal defense. Within a week, she was facing a formal inquiry. The HOA boardhood, long grown tired of her power-tripping antics, voted to suspend her position pending legal outcome. She tried to call for a special vote. No one showed up. Asterisk, the neighborhood surprisingly rallied around me. Asterisk, turns out Karen had stepped on quite a few toes over the years, fining people for planting non-native shrubs, reporting a 12-year-old for a lemonade stand, even threatening to evict an elderly couple for having wind chimes. Asterisk, now she was the one under investigation. Asterisk, as for the plane, I worked with the NTSB to fully restore what we could salvage. Even with the damage done, we were able to piece together enough to identify a defective actuator, linkage apart, connected to 2 other similar crashes. Thanks to the recovered parts, the FAA issued an urgent inspection directive for all remaining models still in operation. Asterisk. Lives might be saved because of that broken down junk in my backyard. Asterisk Karen. Last I heard she was facing civil liability for obstruction and unauthorized removal of federal evidence. The NTSB didn't press federal charges, though they could have. But she's now got a hefty legal bill in a community that wants nothing to do with her. Asterisk, ironically. That once quiet piece of wreckage became a symbol of something bigger, a warning against arrogance, and a reminder that not everything old or rusty is without value. Asterisk, I still keep a small piece of that plane's tail on my wall in the garage, next to a framed letter from the NTSB thanking me for my help. Asterisk, sometimes justice doesn't come with sirens and headlines. Sometimes it arrives on 4 flat tires and a broken wing. Asterisk, and sometimes it's enough to see the look on Karen's face when the feds knock on her door for a change. Asterisk.